All right. I called the meeting to order before this was recording. I'll do that again. It's 5:37 on Thursday, April 23rd, Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee meeting. Just gonna do a quick check on. Hey, we're all here. That's pretty wonderful. And I think Tim just filled out his card, so he's a legal member of the group again. Yeah.
Card carrying.
Yeah. I'm just gonna open the conversation up for public comment. There's nobody in the room from the public. If there's anybody online who wants to make public comment, just raise your hand. Let us know you have 3 minutes. All right. If there's any lag there, and you raise your hand after we start our discussion, that'd be fine too. Pretty informal group over here. We have with us a guest this evening, Ann Ball, who's the director of the Maine Downtown Center. Where she is joining us to talk through with us the strategies that we identified from our March meeting. Reagan La Rochelle, who is a TIP consultant, is going to be here tonight, but she has a client who needed her attendance at a council meeting to, I think, have a project approved. So hopefully we'll have a chance to talk with her in the future. If we could just go around, do a round of introductions, and I think it's always helpful, given the work we're doing here, if you could just say like what your background is, just briefly, and how would you like to start?
I sell houses for Homestead Realty. We have met before, which is great. Yep, lived in the town forever.
Love it. Ann Ball, here from Maine Downtown Center, a program of Maine Development Foundation, and I'll be talking a little bit and listening and answering questions. Thanks for having me.
Tim Adams. I'm a software developer. I've lived in Winthrop for about 4 years now.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good evening, Steve McDermott. I provide technical assistance for affordable housing and community facilities across Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. Thanks for being here tonight with us, Ann.
George Smith, retired. Lived in next to Vegewana Camp for about 30 years. And I'm happy to hear what you have to say today.
Good.
Whitney Kahn, I'm in cybersecurity. I've been here, I want to say about 3 years.
Pat, you're up over there.
Yep. Pat Savory. Winthrop has been in my family and blood since I was 4 years old. So let's call it 70 years. I love it. Love it. They'll love the town and deeply committed to it.
Hey. Dawn, I know.
Oh, John's on there too.
Don, do you want to say hi, just for
Hi,
anybody
Dawn.
else who might be watching us?
Sure. Yeah, this is Dawn Emerson, town planner, and I'm just interested at this point. Trying to assist.
You ever figure out who iPad
Thanks for
was?
being interested. I don't know.
Yep.
Any response?
Not yet.
Okay, that's fine. Tonight is the second meeting of our 3-meeting series that we're working on the local economy section of the comprehensive plan. At our first meeting, we started with, I think, 20 to 25 strategies that we winnowed down to 4. And those, I think, if I was going to categorize them for Ann and summarize our conversation, the conversation centered around not just the traditional markers of economic development through increased commercial utilization or commercial development, but also how utilized the downtown or village area is by community members. So there's a lot of the conversation centered on walkability, accessibility, and using the downtown as a nexus to recreation. People coming in for recreation, then staying in the downtown, or if they come for the downtown, then getting to the lakes. And that was there. I think it might be most helpful and just so everybody's aware, I framed this as a conversation with Ann that she's not here to make a presentation just about Maine Downtown Center, but more as a subject matter expert who has had the opportunity to work with communities across the state as they think about how do they revitalize or redevelop or strengthen their downtown areas. So this will be an opportunity to hear for us to hear a little bit about the downtown center, but also to talk to Anne. I would also ask Anne to give us feedback on kind of the board strategy we laid out, but also for us to ask Anne, here's what we're thinking. As non-economic development people and non-community development people, are we thinking about this right? Do we need to shift our heading? Do we need to turn the boat around? Or do we just need to like maybe let the sails in a little bit?
Great. I'm really glad you told me that it was in the local economy section because I missed that. I'd seen the 4, but I was like, I didn't have that context. And I'm like, you just totally, that helps me
Okay.
a lot. So as Stephen said, I'm not going to go deeply into what the Maine Downtown Center does and why I believe in the work. I'll give you a brief overview. I mean, the big thing you should know is Winthrop is currently a municipal member of the Maine Downtown Center. So the Maine Downtown Center does 2 things in the state of Maine. We are basically the state coordinator for the National Main Street program. So in Maine, we have 10 nationally accredited Main Street communities, 14 downtown affiliates, and I think it's 8 municipal programs, which is sort of the early entry point. And right now, Winthrop is participating at that level, largely through Dawn and a committee that exists in the community. And Sylvie, my colleague, has largely been supporting that group and helping them sort of think about the downtown holistically. And, I'm sure Dawn can fill you in on exactly what's going on with that program. So we do that role of coordinating the whole National Main Street program. There are over 2,500 programs nationally. And as I said, we have 24 programs plus our 8 municipal programs here in Maine.
Good evening, Deb.
And these programs are focused on historic preservation-based economic development, place-based economic development, or another term is asset-based economic development. The methodology is almost 50 years old, and it was founded by the National Trust for Historic Preservation in response to mall development. Malls in the 70s started to make the local hardware store and the local drugstore in these historic downtowns close, and big box stores and that whole growth. And so the National Main Street Center program was founded in response to that big shift, big economic shift, as I said, almost 50 years ago. And that is one of our roles. The other role that we do in the state of Maine is we serve as a resource for any community who's doing downtown revitalization, not just those 33 communities. So I'm constantly traveling, visiting other communities and talking to them. Sometimes it's about one building. Sometimes it's about, a building that's falling down, or, a community that just has lost sort of pride, or they have too many empty storefronts, or they call me for any number of reasons to talk to them. So I was kind of psyched to come, talk to you all because you are implementing your comprehensive plan. And we talk about with our communities all the time, what does your comp plan say? When they are talking to us about potential strategies or potential barriers, sometimes we're like, you got to refer to that document. It's an important document, and I think it looks like you have this local economy section and you have some strategies which are specifically related to the downtown. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. One more sort of high level thing. When a community has a downtown revitalization program, whether that is a Main Street or an affiliate or just a downtown committee that maybe isn't even in my program, but if it's part of our program, it is a comprehensive view of economic development. Like a lot of people say, oh, Main Streets, they just plan parties. That is not the case. That is part of what they do. They have 4 points that they work in, and one of them is promotion, and that is about bringing people to the core downtown district for events and for things that are happening and sort of celebrating that place. So sure, that's one of the things they do. But the other things that they do is they have a what's called organization committee, or again, this is the second point. They can recruit volunteers, they can raise money for this effort, they can do things that the municipality can't do. So they're a key partner in this work. They also look, the third point, economic vitality. They look at a good economic mix. You know, at one point, gosh, I think it was Gardner had like 6 hair salons. And we were like, wow, that's a lot of hair salons in that tiny downtown, right? Your economic mix is not quite balanced. And so economic vitality is really looking at what's the economic mix. One of the things I always say about Winthrop is that you have sort of an economic niche, if you will, with the whole secondhand and thrift and the vault and all of that going on. And that's kind of a fascinating thing to build on and support and balance out, because that is a destination. I know people in Southern Maine who are like, I'm going to Winthrop, you know, because that has created this draw. And I think you all see that. So anyway, economic vitality is, again, looking at that good economic mix. It's also bringing the businesses together so they know each other. Maybe they want to all be open on the same Friday night because of an art walk or some other thing happening, but it's a coordination among all those businesses. And then the last point of the 4 points that all downtown groups work on is design. And design is those sidewalks, it's wayfinding, it's trail connectivity, it's connectivity clearly to your lakefront, and it's, you know, historic preservation. That's a big part of it. It's clean storefronts, like washing your windows and putting out planters and things like that. So those are the 4 points, and that's the type of work that we support around the state. And I wanted you to know that, because when you look at your language that you pulled out, your priorities, I was like, okay, those all relate to this 4 points. And that's kind of interesting to think about, that like, we are thinking comprehensively about this downtown, or sort of holistically. So I'll just pause and see if anybody has any questions on that super quick overview. Sometimes I go to, well, we've been to Winthrop many times doing that in depth in presentation, both to Dawn's downtown committee. I did it with the town council when Anthony had literally like his first week of work or something. So we've done that presentation many times, and I'm happy to answer questions on how that works. George?
Yes, I have a question. I was curious as you were going through your 4 points.
Yeah.
Have you evaluated Winthrop in terms of those 4 points and identified their strengths and weaknesses, or how does that work?
Sure. So that is something we work with the downtown group on doing, to help them set priorities and a work plan. And sometimes it's surveying the businesses, what are their needs, or serving the residents, what are their priorities. And we try to feed them the tools to do that. And in a work plan, we would be like, here's something you might want to consider in the second year of your program. And I think if you would talk to Dawn, you would see that she's pretty tuned into that. So yes, we support that, but we don't do that work for you. What we did do, which really was an insightful conversation, is I have an advisory council. The organization I'm part of, Maine Development Foundation, has a board. They're a nonprofit, but I am a program of that, and we have an advisory council. And we meet all over the state 6 times a year. And we met in Winthrop last year. And we did a walking tour, and we met with Anthony and Dawn, and Pat was there. And we did our walking tour, and we took lots of notes that we shared on that day with like, this works really well. Here's an opportunity for redevelopment. You could use TIF funding to do this. So we threw it all on the table that day. But anyway, I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
It's the Downtown Revitalization Committee, is that?
Yeah.
Is that the name of it? Okay, sorry that I didn't know the
No,
exact name.
that's not on
We
you.
got lots of committees. Hey, Dawn, would you do me a favor and send us all the documents from that, so we can think more from a more informed perspective?
Are you talking about the notes from our site visit? Cause I might be able to get
Okay.
those.
That's important. Because we did bring up a lot of, I had to leave early, but we did bring up a lot of.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah.
Anything in particular stand out to you as an opportunity?
Well, certainly your mills, you know, I think one of them is empty, but was starting to be rehabbed. That sound right?
Several floors in it are empty.
Okay,
Primarily.
okay,
Right.
okay, primarily empty, there we go.
Yeah, and then the main level houses the thing that everybody comes to,
Yeah.
the hall.
Yes,
And then beside it is another structure.
that was the one I was thinking of, it
Right,
is.
that was the office, and that's completely
Yeah.
empty.
Yeah, okay. So I would say mills, and then the other thing that we noticed on our walking tour were your parking lots. You have a lot of them. And it's a question of, are that many parking spots needed? Is that a code requirement? Or is there too much parking? How can you soften the parking? How can you make it more inviting to cut through, like, I don't remember if it's called Main Street, but like the main drag, cut through the parking lot to the library? Is that a more gentle way to get back there? Like what can you do to make those spaces more attractive? So we talked about that. Those are two things that I remember, but I'll get the notes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And behind the mill, remember behind the mill, the stream and there's.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I totally remember
Yeah,
that. We have
was
pictures there.
Right.
And that is, that's a total hidden gem. And I also think, you know, you have the historical society and the little cemetery. I was like, okay, there's something in there. So no, there were a lot of assets and wonderful things. And sometimes, you know, it's just the effort of prioritizing, like, what do we need to do and what could we do and what do we have money for, and sprucing things up. I mean, it's amazing what, like I said, clean windows in a storefront does for a community. It sounds silly, but it really can make a difference. Any other questions yet?
Yeah, and I think, when I think of communities and big projects, and in downtown we have a mill and a
Yeah.
large space, and I'm wondering if you've worked, what communities have you seen use a master planning approach? And obviously, if it's private property, that has to be done by the owner entity. But I'm curious if you've seen greater long-term success when entities do master planning versus smaller iterative planning.
Great question, and I don't know if you're gonna like my answer because I've seen it work both
Yeah.
ways. So Gardner undertook, they used coastal, what's that source of funding? It was like coastal, it was some sort of funding to fund a downtown
That
plan.
they're eligible for because of that.
Yes, but they're an inland community. I know it's the Kennebec River, which touches the ocean, but they got coastal funding.
They're intertitled. Right?
Yeah,
Right,
so
right.
anyway, so they are the community that's done a downtown plan most recently that we've worked with. And I think the downtown plan does a lot of things. This isn't an economic plan.
Yeah.
It includes economic, but it's the downtown plan. It's the core downtown district. It, you know, enables them to prioritize. It enables them to seek specific funding sources and or raise money for specific initiatives. There's obviously a public component, so it has the community behind it. It gives them a playbook and it gives them teeth. It also allows them to get CDBG downtown revitalization funds because they have a current downtown plan. You know, you can't go and get CDBG funding without a plan that's within the last 10 years, and unfortunately. So, and I've talked to CDBG to say, what if they have a downtown component in their comp plan? And we tried that with a community down east, and it just didn't have the same teeth that a full downtown plan does. So downtown plans are absolutely great. But one of the sort of tenets of Main Street work is the word incremental. There are 8 of them, and I will send them to you because they're regular things that we all are like, oh, of course. One of them is incremental, and the work that downtown organizations do, even if it's a little bit at a time, it just works. It builds momentum, it shows pride, it can be like the catalyst that'll lead to something else. And so I often am coaching communities that that little change really makes a difference.
Yeah.
And so that's the incremental piece, and you don't wanna lose that, and you can do both,
So
At the
hearing a
same
yes
time.
and, I'm hearing a yes and, like there's big picture,
absolutely.
and then there's the,
I hate to harp on Belfast, because I always do, but Belfast does it well. Do you know how they turned their whole plan around? Because they really have put their face on the books.
So they are a nationally accredited Main Street, which means they have full-time staff devoted to this effort. And that has been that way. I have to look at my computer to tell you what year they started. But I would assume it probably was around 2005 or 8 or something like that. So let's just say they've been doing it, Pat, for almost 20 years. The municipality has a TIF that they have used for downtown investments, both supporting the Main Street organization and really targeted a beautiful river walk with lighting that sort of takes pedestrians and puts them, out of the downtown, but still in the downtown, right? And it's a great investment. It goes down by the old cannery, I think it is. So Harbor Walk, they call it.
Yep.
So those kind of investments make a difference. I'm trying to think what else makes them stand out. I mean, I almost reflect on the word incremental. I mean, they've done little things like they put up wayfinding on trash cans. And I know you're like, why are you telling us this? Well, it's actually really brilliant in that, they need trash cans. They have a lot of visitors that come there, but they've put the wayfinding like very clearly pointing like the harbor is this way and, the theater is that way and the farmer's market's that way. And it really is a great, simple example. They've focused, they were a participant in a grant we had focusing on entrepreneurship and how to support local entrepreneurs. So they've upped their game as far as helping entrepreneurs identify what they need, whether that is, funding or training. And I think they've made like an ecosystem of entrepreneurs in that community. And some of them are remote workers. And I'm wondering if Stephen told me his remote schedule. Are you remote as well? And yeah, so there's clearly that going on here. And how do you get those remote workers together and things like that? I'm trying to think why else Belfast is standing out for you, and what is the sort of cause and effect?
You just walk there and it feels upbeat. It feels like they care. It feels like a vibrant.
Yes, so they are more dense than you physically.
True.
Okay, there is a density in commercial establishments and in housing. So that is part of the feel. You're absolutely right. There's just more of it. And I think, you have opportunities for that, without a doubt. And you do have some, I just drove through because it had been a few months since I've been here, and you do still have some you have development opportunities, right? So focusing on that starts to build that density. They have great civic engagement in that the people are really come downtown. I mean, but you guys, we've heard it, and Pat on the call said, she loves this place, and I'm sure that there is a lot of that here. And sometimes it's capitalizing on that. So it's good to visit those places though and ask those questions.
Yeah.
anything coming to mind?
Yeah, just a quick one at the end. Your outset, you did mention that there were several different reasons that people were, I guess, would identify a place as somewhere to go, and it was place-based, asset-based, but I missed.
Oh, historic preservation base. Yeah, it was totally originally founded because, again, of drawing businesses out of the downtowns to these malls, and then you have these empty buildings, and how are you gonna take care of them and fill them, and, and we still have, not all the communities that are main streets have empty storefronts, and many of them have full storefronts, but then they have empty second and third stories. And that's a whole nother economic challenge, is how do you fill those? And a lot of them are code issues, you know, and how do we do that in Maine? But yes, historic preservation.
I'm curious, as you work with communities, how they involve zoning ordinances to drive the type of development that would encourage a thriving downtown, and if you see that as an intentional action, or if you've seen that implemented intentionally to say that they want first floor commercial, intentionally want first floor commercial, because intentionally want first floor commercial, second floor residential. We recently lost a store downtown because the building owner changed part of the building first floor to be residential. And
Yeah.
we lost a commercial store and they moved to Gardner.
Yeah.
Which is great for Gardner.
Right.
I'm really happy that they were able to continue, but I wonder if you've seen communities that think about tie this kind of what I hear or see as economic development and community pride, but tie it to an intentional zoning ordinance.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't have any main streets, let me think about that, that are leading the charge of changing zoning ordinances. They are, however, and I encourage them to do this, paying attention to what you just described happened. I mean, I've had a number of communities saying, our council wants to change our ordinance so that we can have housing on the first floor. And we're like, okay, that's a really bad idea. Here's what the data says and why, you know, if you want a vibrant downtown, you want to have life in those buildings at different times of the day. And the person who's living there might leave for all day, go to work somewhere else. And so it's really important to think about that in a zoning ordinance. So I would say they're more apt to have the capacity to advocate for like why that would be a bad idea. Or I think the main streets are definitely advocating for the use of TIFs as tools, as you and I were talking about when we came in. And they advocate for, I mean, they're working on issues of homelessness and the unhoused, and you know, they think about a lot of things happening in those downtowns, and zoning is one of them, but I don't have any that are leading the effort. They will advocate for it though. Yeah, you know, it's a hard one. I noticed that on your what do we call these priorities that you winnowed it down to? Walkability was listed a lot. And I think these were all, you know, economic development plan, and then encouraging and promoting Main Street activities such as the Memorial Day Parade. I'm just gonna flag that one for 1 second. Yeah. And that goes back to my comment, which I said, a lot of people think Main Streets are just party planners. And Main Street activities are, even though they aren't necessarily leading zoning changes, they are way more than just bringing events downtown. That's a great role, and you guys know what happens in this community. And I know Sylvie talked to the committee, the Downtown Revitalization Committee, about what are they hosting, and you know, you don't have to have something every month of the year. I do have some communities in rural Maine, and they're like, we have an event every month. And I'm like, well, how do you get anything else done? That's a lot. But, you know, you have events in the community that are beloved and people come to them, and sometimes they need to evolve or change, but those are important things for communities to have. And Memorial Day in particular is something a lot of our main streets are involved in. I just wanted to call it out purely because Main Street activities are more than just a parade.
And I think just to contextualize that,
please.
I think part of the conversation, I think maybe Pat might additional context here, but my recollection of that conversation was that is a great example of when everybody, when the town shows up.
Yes.
And people come downtown, and I can tie that back to parking lots in a minute, but I think that was just an example of one of the times when downtown is full.
Yes.
Filled and people show up, and I would be remiss if I didn't highlight the great work Dawn did and kind of reorganizing where we hosted where the town
Yeah.
hosted a Halloween walk and moving it from this area right behind us,
Yep.
which was great and safe, and it was a closed street, to Main Street, and then the businesses had
That's
candy
awesome.
out and
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
it really was
That's so great,
quite
and
wonderful.
one of the biggest Halloween celebrations in the state is in Augusta, and they bring people to the downtown like that, so that's great, I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure you guys all knew that. I think in these areas, like I said, they kind of touch the 4-point approach, right? Walkability is like design, economic development plan, and sort of gap analysis and leakage surveys and entrepreneurship, all of that is your economic vitality standpoint, it's your connection to your outdoor recreation economy. And then design, promoting, connecting, I think it said promote connected parking lots to improve walkability. That's like a design issue. I mean, it's a beautification issue, so it's both that, it's a physical infrastructure issue. We need the parking, but we want it to be more inviting, so that's a design issue. So with all of this work, what I like is that you kind of are touching all these things, which ultimately we know from experience leads to a good downtown revitalization effort. So that's you should feel good about that, that it's touching everything.
I'd love for you to tell us what you don't like, so we can know where to improve. It's always good to hear where we did this right.
Yeah,
But if there's something here that you see as like, this is missing, or
Yeah,
you're headed in the right direction, but the mark is actually over here, you
yeah,
guys are
okay, that's totally
non-professionals,
fair.
like,
Yeah,
we,
so I mean, the biggest thing that's missing is there is no mention in these, strategies of the history of the built environment. The mills, the houses. I mean, I went down a street tonight and I was like, oh, what a beautiful, Victorian. I had just never seen this particular street. So that's a big thing that's missing for me. You have, the place is made up of, the history of the mill, the people who worked there and started it and their businesses, like that history is what's missing for me.
Yeah.
And you could say that's historic preservation, you could,
Yeah.
either way.
Like, mine's going too fast. The cemetery,
Yep.
the first guy on the left is the guy who founded the town.
Okay,
And nobody knows it's there unless you went to that library lawn.
right,
But that's kind of cool when you all the land from there to the lake, and
wow,
nobody knows, it's just a kind of a hidden thing. And I think that's kind of a cool thing.
it's a great thing to understand.
Yeah,
There are lots of ways downtown programs can, share that information. Augusta and Ellsworth, and I forget who else, have something called Museum in the Streets. It
Right.
comes out seasonally, it's these wonderful sort of stands with the history. I mean, your lakefront is beautiful, but how cool if you had like the map of the town and that man's history, and he owned from here to here, and he was a farmer, whatever the story is.
right.
I mean, there's great ways that downtown programs can do that. But I also think, to me, it taps into sort of the pride and like what you want people to be proud of living here, and those that have old houses, you don't want them to be like, oh, it's just such a pain to keep up. I mean, like, no, there's a great history. I live in an old house and it's a constant piece of work, but I think it's a bigger community development issue, really. I mean, it's your town, but it's also this place, Your library is beautiful architecturally, So I think there's a lot in there that's missing. The other thing that I don't see in these things you pulled out is you talk about the need to do like a gap analysis and something about, you said something about small businesses, but you need to think about who are the businesses that are here? Do they have like a relationship with the Downtown Revitalization Committee, or do they have a relationship with each other? And who can facilitate that? The businesses working together is a key piece of this work. And it sounds simple, but let me just throw out an example. In time of a disaster, there's a massive flood in, downtown Winthrop, and this happened in Gardner. And they needed dumpsters, like to clean out the basements of all these businesses. Well, the businesses worked together with the Main Street organization and all got together and were like, this is what we need right now. The other thing that happened was coordination with CMP. CMP needed to turn on the electricity, and they had to reach all the businesses. And it's again, dumb stuff, but like a phone tree. Like, are your businesses coordinated in any way? And then looking at the future, hi businesses, what do you need? Are you feeling supported? Group meetings of local business owners, local property owners, local remote workers. What are the needs of all these groups of people who are working?
How have you seen those efforts organized in other communities? Like, who usually heads that up? Is that a chamber of commerce?
It's through the downtown organization.
The downtown.
Yep, the Main Street and the affiliates. They're the ones that we are feeding, like, here's a sample survey that you can send out to local businesses to peel back what their needs are, what their priorities are. I mean, Portland, a neighborhood program, Woodford's Corner, has a huge number of immigrant-owned businesses. They are not English as first language speakers, and the Main Street organization developed translating information so they would know they had to shovel from their doorway to the street, like it was their requirement. Like, it's a real need that community had. What are the needs here? And maybe they're like, oh, we don't see traffic on, Friday nights in the summer. Oh, well, is that because everybody's on the lake? Like, you gotta think all these pieces through for Winthrop. So maybe that's not the night they wanna all be open together, but maybe it is. Like, I don't know. It's just, you have to really think about who's here and what they need. So that piece is missing.
That's super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the two things I have in there.
It is 6:15. I mentioned at the beginning, I want to be respectful of everybody's time and our guests' time driving in, which is an old fun house to get to at some point. But it's 6:15, so I just say that as I want to make sure that Pat or Dawn, if they have any comments, we're including them.
Yeah.
And then wrap up any last questions that maybe we don't need an answer from Ann tonight. Maybe she'd be kind enough to get us a response to later.
Absolutely. And you can think about, I can leave you with my card. Any of you can email me and just be like, I thought of one more question. I'm totally fine with that.
Did you shoot us an email earlier this week?
Oh, yeah, I did. I said hi.
Everybody is
Looking
in.
forward to it. That's me.
Right, so we already have.
Wait, was it you, Pat, or that Pat that said, see ya? Oh, it was you.
She might have, but I didn't.
Yeah, so you have my email. Yeah.
So I totally understand the importance of preserving history, especially for people that live here and all that good stuff. What I am struggling to connect is what the historic preservation does from an economic standpoint.
Oh, I can give you so much.
And that's my gap. That's what I'm trying to
So,
fill in the gaps, right? Because I understand, I understand our town's history with the mill.
Yep.
But then the mill goes away,
right.
and there's nothing really that.
So historic preservation drives economic development, and I can give you two national studies that really get more granular in the data and explain why that is. Donovan Ripkema, I will send it to you. It's a great study. And if you look at a community that has invested heavily in historic preservation, that are some of our nationally accredited Main Streets, Rockland. When I moved to Maine a long time ago, and I was first like working, doing architectural survey work, I was afraid to walk through downtown Augusta and I was afraid to walk through downtown Rockland. Those are both accredited main streets that have really invested in their downtowns from a historic preservation standpoint, from a business attraction, a workforce attraction for those upper stories. And they both have really transformed themselves. But I didn't like walking through either of those downtowns. I was doing architectural survey work and I had to, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of afraid to be around here. So things can change,
These are
and
like
that's,
20-year efforts though, right?
yes,
This
they are.
is not a,
That's another one of the 8 things is like patience.
That should be number 1.
this is 2 complicated iterations worth.
But it's iterative, right? It's intentional iteration,
Yeah,
right.
moving forward and
Right.
staying on track. I have a question, but it's, I can ask you afterwards. It's less related to the plan.
Whatever you
More
want.
related to historic tax credits and investment.
Oh, no, I know
I
about that.
have one. So it sounds to me like it might be worth maybe seeing if we can kind of interweave all of the various committees that we have in operation right now. Because I heard the Historic Preservation Committee, Downtown Revitalization Committee. I know we have some outdoors oriented,
Oh, great.
as well as like even the Friends of the Library. But have you seen other communities just kind of get everyone in touch and just
So,
We don't do that well.
all right,
No,
so
we-
what you're getting at a fairly, what I'll call sophisticated part of the approach that I did not even talk to you about. It's called transformation strategies. So our main streets are required to adopt 1 to 3 transformation strategies. Let's say Winthrop says, we are going to focus on Winthrop's connection to the lake. Let's just say that's it. These are usually simple things. One of the things you have to do is connect to all those groups, right? Because you're like, oh, the signage, whatever committee, we need to know if we can get signs to get there. And the preservation committee, we'd like to understand the history, and you connect all those groups. So it's, again, there's a whole entire booklet on transformation strategies, but it's the way you connect those dots and connect those people and bring them together so that you're all on the same page and they all have a role in it. They all can measure whether the thing, what they're doing is working. Like there's a whole bunch of pieces of that. But yes, that's a great way to think about implementing your plan, is like bringing them together to be like, okay, we have these and each of you, and
When you were talking about the businesses connecting, I know the Chamber of Commerce is struggling, if you will. Everything's cyclical, and it used to be really great.
Yeah.
Now it's like teeth. But I feel, this is my interpretation of what people think. Give me your $35, go away, I'll see you next year. And they don't get anything out of it, and I
Yeah.
don't know how to change that. So,
you don't really want to ask me this question.
okay.
No,
But
it's a very challenging time for chambers of commerce in our state. They are closing every month. I feel like they're in a chapter that the model of pay me your $35 and you get listed on a map is not a relevant model anymore. People, I mean, it's just what I'm seeing, and I mean,
But then what's next if you don't have it? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think this is a really meaty question about
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
That I want to be mindful. I want 2 more agenda items to get through.
Oh,
And I want to be mindful that culture can be a big topic, and we can invite Anne back if she's willing to come back and talk about culture shift. And I want to acknowledge
Yeah.
that while
totally
the
fine.
thing that I think is so amazing with Winthrop is we have, I think, 5 sports teams practicing behind us.
Right.
It's how many parents I see out
right.
in volunteering their time and giving up their time.
Yep.
Or I shouldn't say parents, but community members.
Somebody should, coffee truck day.
And some of the questions I'm hearing tonight are, how do we collaborate and how do we shift culture
Good
to
point.
engagement?
Yeah.
And I think those are not 10-minute
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
I think those are 2-hour, 3-hour brainstorming sessions about where do we have good collaboration, where do we have good engagement?
Yeah.
And what are the what are the similarities there, what are the dissimilarities, and how can we doodle them and draw that out. What are the drivers of that, so that the chamber can be supportive and relevant, because it has done so much and can continue to do so much, but maybe different so much.
Or is it supposed to just die? And then what's next? I mean, because that's what I see is they're dying. So, go.
So just a progression, like,
That's it, yeah. Let me get my card now. Well, Anne?
Yeah.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thanks
coming
for
out
having
tonight. This was wonderful.
Yeah.
What town do you live in?
I actually live in Yarmouth right now.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Nice.
1885 farmhouse.
And energy efficient, and
We just got solar put on.
there you
Good
go.
job.
Yeah. Because our barn faces the right way.
Perfect. Good job.
Okay, let me know if you have other
Yeah,
questions.
feel free to stay, feel free to not
That was
stay.
helpful.
I don't know,
That was helpful.
move on.
Well, you can stay.
You said you had another question for me, so I'll wait.
Well, I do have questions, but I appreciate that. So, Anthony was kind enough to add an agenda item to briefing of the April 6th discussion with the town council on recommended housing strategies. I am happy to brief y'all, and also happy to just move beyond that if you're not curious. Pat was there, Pat was attending, George said he watched. Wendy, Kim, I don't know if you had the opportunity to watch, but I'm happy to give a brief overview or answer questions.
Oh, well, I intended on watching it, so I'll.
Just to brief.
Okay, so at the April 6th town council meeting, I presented on the 5 strategies that we talked about for housing. And, I thought it was a really good conversation from the council, lots of questions. I thought Jim Steele, who is the council chair, asked just like this really kind of direct question that cut to the center, a really challenging question of what can we do as a council, right? The council is acknowledging that they're not a developer. We as a community do not have an affordable housing trust fund, which is a tool some municipalities use. We have a municipal TIF, but those funds weren't allocated towards housing. And so the questions were, we had suggested that they look at underutilized buildings or parcels that could be disposed of intentionally, and that evokes some conversation. It doesn't feel like that might be a priority, although I believe there was some direction to Anthony Wilson to take a look at what parcels are owned by the community that might be underutilized and could be disposed of via procurement process within the end goal being affordable or other types of housing. The other recommendations we talked about were just, I think, there's good conversation. To Jim's point, what can we do? It's an acknowledgement that the community can set the tone and set the pace for conversation. And if somebody comes in, the council can offer their support for the types of housing they want to see. And I think Councilor Roy Wade has brought up the point of we talked about this, that it is not just one type of housing that we need. We need housing along the continuum. We need affordable, with a capital A, capital H housing rental unit stock. We also need, maybe not need restricted or income restricted affordable housing with a lowercase a for our community members who may have raised a family here and no longer can afford or need a 5-bedroom home. Maybe it's hard to maintain, but Winthrop is where they raise their family, where their friends are, where they go to church, where they go to breakfast, and have to leave that feels not great. But we don't have good options. We don't have smaller 1,000 square foot homes with small driveways and smaller yards. This time of year, I'm thinking about yard maintenance a lot, so I might just be projecting. So the conversation really was not focused on affordable housing, but focusing on the housing supply and what the need is. And I think it was a really great first conversation. It was also right after Reagan La Rochelle talked about tax increment financing and what that does and how the benefits of that. Her focus was largely on municipal TIFs, which are for economic development. There are affordable housing TIFs, which are a wonderful tool, and I think it was the start of a good conversation, and I think achieved our goal of evoking conversation and not just landing at here's our recommendations, thanks.
They were open.
Yeah.
They were open and listening.
Happy to talk more about that, but that was the brief overview. And then the last item I wanted to get to was I distributed meeting minutes just before this meeting started or after the meeting started to everybody. I will just admit, like, here in public, that minutes are not the thing that I am best at, both recording them or remembering to always distribute them ahead of time. So I will own that, but if everybody's had the chance to review them, I would love if we could make a motion to accept them, because then I will only have one set of meeting minutes for next meeting to try and remember.
I move
Second.
Thanks, George. All in favor?
And Ann, you should get a chance to see what Tim developed for this committee.
Oh,
Thanks, Pat.
Pretty amazing
Oh,
set
yeah?
of software
cool.
for monitoring progress of this whole plan.
Oh, I think people across the state might like that.
It's an evolving thing.
Is it?
I'd be very interested to have a much longer meeting at some point, and whether it happens like in the, on the regular schedule, we just have a 2-hour meeting, or at some other time, but, just to get into the collaboration and culture discussion, I think that would be very fun to start, if anyone wants.
Why don't we, so our next of the three meetings, the arc of the 3-meeting arc, we've come together, we've winnowed, we've gone apart, and we've come back today, and we've learned what we did great and what we did less great. We will come back next month and say, do these 4, hit the mark. Did the subject matter expert tell us we're missing something, and maybe should we add a 5th or 6th item? Should we pull one out? We gave ourselves 5 for each one, so adding a 5th is no problem. We had, I think, 15 that had 2 votes or 3 votes, so I just decided to go with 4. So, and we'll do that next month, and if that feels like a pretty natural place. I think our 3rd meeting for housing was the shortest of the 3 meetings, so maybe we can devote some time to conceptualizing that.
And that meeting date is the 28th, the 4th.
No, it is typically the 2nd Thursday.
14th.
The 14th.
14th.
Thanks, Pat.
14th. Yep.
God has spoken.
The owl has spoken. Thank you very much. It's 6:26,
Yep.
6:29. If somebody wants to move on, we can get out of here a little early. All right, great. Thanks for being here, everybody. Bye, Pat.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye.
Bye.